Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, when you're outside the ring, the fight of life is a completely different game altogether. And when you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you are in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of industry professionals and we pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and conversational fashion. And if you like how we do things around here, I'm going to assume that you do because you're listening right now. You can subscribe to the podcast. Give us that subscribe, give us that 5-star rating, and like us. And you can find us basically wherever you get your podcasts. We're on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google. It's all good wherever you get your podcasts. And plus, we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel. So if you can give us a like and subscribe there as well, we'd really appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to follow us on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at either at In the Seats or at It's Podcast One for all sorts of fun updates. And finally, and like the broken record that I am, I will say it again, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca, where we cover film, television, film festivals, and the moving image at large, because if we love to watch it and write about it and talk about it, we love it when you come by and read about it and listen about it. So please pay us a visit. On this episode, we got another interesting one. Another one which is on video-on-demand platforms now, and it's, well, it's a bit of a fight film, really, but it's not the traditional by any sense of the mean. It's called Catch the Fair One, and it's a fantastic film about a boxer who really goes in the fight of her life when she goes searching for her sister, who is missing and presumed kidnapped, and they don't know where she is. And it's a real nail biter of a thriller, and it's such a fantastic piece of cinema that I cannot recommend it enough. But it's Darren Aronofsky got to produce it, but it's from director Josef Wladyka. I apologize if I pronounced that wrong, but it's also from he co-wrote it with his co-star, one Kali Reis, who is the lead in our film and our boxer who is on the search of her sister. And we had the distinct pleasure of sitting down and talking with Josef and Kali just about sort of the origins of the story and how they wanted to tell it, and just sort of the nature of filmmaking in general, and just sort of what makes anytime we're watching somebody in a fight, be it in the ring or out of the ring or looking for someone or any kind of struggle, what makes it so compelling for audiences to watch on screen. And this is a very incredibly compelling film to watch on screen, which I cannot recommend enough. But like I said, it is on video-on-demand platforms now, like Apple or Google, from our friends at Mongrel Media. So I do recommend either you go rent it or you go pick up a copy for yourself. But first, enjoy our talk with Josef and Kali, because between you and me, it's a pretty good one.
But I mean, obviously, first off, just congratulations both on the film. I mean, I really enjoyed it. And I mean, I think the thing that was the real pull away from me was, I mean, obviously we have seen stories like this before, but they none of them ever felt this singular, this kind of focus. Can you guys walk me through sort of the origin of the story on your end?
Sure. The singular focus. I mean, me and Kaylee collaborated on this film over the course of 2 years. It was a constant influx working on the script. From obviously I'm writing on final draft, but like I always wanted to get her perspective and bring it in and incorporate it to the story. And one thing that we wanted to do, because the issue that it's touching on is it's so long and it's huge to put. How do you put that into an 80-minute film?
Right.
So I think what we eventually came back to, because there was so much we wanted to say. There was so much that we were learning, researching as we were working on the film and developing our relationship and trust, that we realized that we wanted to take sort of like the themes of like pain and loss and frustration and put it on the shoulders of this character, just the singularity of this one character, and take this once powerful warrior that used to be a professional fighter and sort of rip the audience through this cathartic thriller, really, that leaves them in a place of thinking. So I think a lot of it was just us trusting each other, but constantly kind of always coming back to that sort of spine of it, if that makes sense.
No, for sure.
And her being sort of the engine that drives the movie. and obviously there's so much stuff that's open to interpretation, and so many things that questions aren't answered, but we felt that like grounding it with her was kind of our way of just sort of telling this specific story, if that makes sense.
For sure. No, it absolutely does. And I mean, Kaylee, I guess my next question is for you. Because this is your first feature, like, had you always intended to be this character, or was it just a question of in the process of developing the material, you guys decided maybe I should do this?
I mean, initially, he came to me with an idea and kind of like a bare bones script or a story that he knew he wanted to tell. And he asked me if I was ever interested in acting, and oddly so, I was, just didn't know how to start. So him adding me and wanting me to be a collaborative partner so close to the story and being able to develop the character with him really helped in understanding what we were doing with the themes of the story, really helped in me being able to perform exactly what we wanted to portray with this character. So, I know that usually doesn't happen, especially being my first time out, but I was really able to have this process where she grew as the story grew to what it is and what we ended up with. And also on set too, just kind of learning the environment and really getting immersed in her whole head and her whole world. It kind of just, even throughout the film, there was just a couple of other little things that I picked up for this specific character too.
No, I mean, I really love, I guess maybe the balance of the film is the right way to put it, because I mean, obviously there are moments where it's tight on Kaylee and we see sort of the intensity, her in the fight, her in the moment, her going through this struggle, but then conversely it'll cut to like a wide shot of like sort of something desolate and bleak. Like for you, when you're designing the film, was that sort of key to sort of have to strike a balance between the two and have sort of the intense but then sort of the bleakness from the far away at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, I think you are a very sharp person, because you're nailing something on the head in terms of, I mean, obviously we wanted to be subjective with her for a lot of the film. She's the film. She's in every scene. She carries us through the film. But the film, it goes to some pretty dark places. And we felt like you need some spots for the audience to just breathe and sort of register information. And a lot of the times that's when we would cut to like a locked off wide shot. You know what I mean? Like just to open it up for a second, just to let us sort of kind of breathe a little bit with what's going on. You know what I mean? Like, so there was that idea of it. And then also, reminding, sort of grounding the audience and reminding them sort of where we are in the world, in the story, like what locations, because the locations were so pivotal for the film, I feel like, and just being able to show sort of that environment that sort of mimics sort of the feeling of the film. If that makes sense.
No, I mean, Kaylee, for you, I'm curious, how did Josef just sort of, I mean, help, because I mean, obviously in a character like this, you've got to turn it on, you've got to throw yourself into it, and your character is going to a really dark place, but at the same time, you've got to be able to turn it off. Or were you able to turn it off? How did you manage sort of those offset moments, especially in a first time role, getting to such a dark place?
Well, I from the beginning, Josef has shared his knowledge with me and really kind of was taking me through some goofy little acting things early on. But I'm a sponge, and this is something, especially having that sport and athletic mind frame and being so dedicated and having that discipline to really do the best I can with my tool, whether it's with acting or boxing. There's a lot of parallels with that. So between him and also shout out to Sheila Gray that I had with a boot camp, we call it like acting boot camp. Right before shooting, she was able to fine tune things and really explain to me how to get to certain places and also how to get back out. And just me knowing that when the bell rings in the ring, when I'm fighting, I'm not this person, I'm somebody else doing something else. And when I'm out of the ring, I'm, smiley, jokey, happy. But honestly, I'm huge on my surroundings. So when I was done offset, my room was something completely different than what I'm not tied up in a basement with a creepy guy about to kill me with stuff. I'm here. I'm Kaylee, even though, her name was Kaylee, it was a character. So really understanding that early on and just having an artistic brain from jump. I mean, I've painted, played music. I come from a really expressive background, and even, playing these different characters, even with boxing, I have to be a certain way when I'm speaking, I'm making a press announcement about a fight. It's just understanding that contrast.
No, go ahead.
Sheila Gray's an acting coach. She's a legendary acting coach in New York. So through some people who have worked with her, I had heard wonderful things. So me and Kaylee had been doing our stuff for a long time leading up to shooting, working on material and rehearsing and bringing my friend who's an actor and shooting stuff. It was, like I said, it was a constant influx thing, but I knew also I wanted to kind of, there was another maybe step to take her. And so that's when I threw her into this 1 week boot camp with Sheila, because I knew that she could maybe break through in certain ways as well. And just also to have you kind of feel someone else, you know?
Yeah, well, that was a hell of a 5 days.
And I mean, I've got to say, as a fight fan myself, I kind of appreciated that the film was very representative of sort of the sport and honest to it, because I mean, obviously, I mean, Kaylee, you can obviously speak to this, but I mean, there's going to be moments that aren't necessarily as pretty, but it felt very genuine and very honest, and it really allowed us to sort of jump into the character more. I'm kind of curious for both of you, how important was it to sort of at least understand the fight game sort of right, as opposed to trying to Hollywoodize it?
Yeah, I think we both agreed that, most boxing movies are just horrible. The fight scenes drive me crazy. I mean, it might be a good story, but the box, I'm always like, oh my God. So he, put his trust in knowing that I am a seasoned fighter. Brick, the character played Brick, Shelley, she's a fighter. The big guy that she was sparring, that's actually my cousin. He works my corner. So he trusted that we would, if as long as we had the space and understood, the technical parts, that we can kind of, he left that up to us too, because he knows, this is our world, you know what I mean? So he allowed us to immerse our world with his world of having to have the right shots. And it was fun. It was fun to be in something kind of familiar in an unfamiliar territory, like being an actor in a film.
Yeah, and as the director, as I was hanging out with her more and I was going to her fights with her, I'm always having my eye out in terms of who can we put in the film that will feel so authentic and real and will make the make the boxing automatic, you know what I mean? And I think the opening sequence was really, it's like, let's show the power of this person, even though she's just working the mitts. And with her and Shelley, I mean, you guys known each other for forever.
Yeah, forever.
And Shelley is a very, very well-known boxer as well, female boxer as well. So for me, it was like, I gotta get them in there. And then with, the help of a stunt coordinator, Chaz, we all can kind of collaborate and work it out and make it as real. But it helps when you got all real fighters. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I mean, even little bits, like, I mean, in watching you get your hands taped up, it'd be like I'd watch other movies and they'd be doing it wrong, and it would just take me completely out of the moment.
Yep.
And it's just like, it just ruins it. But I mean, this didn't. And I mean, I'm curious for you, Kaylee, especially in some of the more physical scenes as a fighter, how do you sort of get into stunt mode? Because I mean, I can imagine, I mean, if you're fighting in a movie versus a real fight, like in a real fight, obviously you're giving it 110%. But in the stunt world, in the film, you just have to look like it's 110%. You don't actually want to be throwing it 110%.
Well, when it's your cousin that jumps at the opportunity to punch you in your face, you throw real punches at him. I mean, I think there was one point where he's like, no, you really stunned me. That's why I had to hit you back. So, but understanding how to take certain, when there had to be like a certain shot, Chaz is amazing. And he was delighted at the fact that we were all real fighters. So it was easier to kind of collaborate and make this beautiful sequence that felt real, was pretty real, but also in the theatrical frame of, this is pretend. So it was educational to really understand how stunts even work. And then, the whole MMA little part of it, I don't know, it was like a half-hour training session, and then we shot it, just really basic stuff. But I know that me being an athlete, that it was so, all right, what do I have to do? This step, great, let's run through it. Okay, I got it, kind of a thing. So it's the physical part of it. The fighting part, I guess that was the easiest part of it, and the most fun, especially like slamming into tables and stuff. That was amazing. But it was really interesting to see how things. It's a dance. It's just like boxing. It's a dance.
Yeah, and even the guy who she rolls with for a second is also a black belt in jiu-jitsu. So I like getting the real people, And then Chaz, our stunt coordinator, he was so excited because he had all these amazing
it made his job easier,
fighters to work with.
And I love the physicality of the movie, because I mean it gets us in the moment, and I mean we feel like we're going along with Kaylee's journey. And I mean, without giving too much away, I kind of really enjoyed the ending of the film, because it's a happy ending, but it's not necessarily an idyllic ending.
Right.
Like, how important was it for you guys to sort of try to, I guess, maybe have it both ways? Because I mean, you're having your cake and eating it too, but it still kind of works at the same time, rather than sort of going one way or the other.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how to explain it without giving away anything, but I mean, basically, we always said that the film needed to be what do I say? Unpredictable but inevitable.
Yeah.
Unpredictable
Right.
and so the reality is the amount of time that her sister was been missing, and one person, even if she is this strong, powerful warrior, the thing she's overcoming, one person can't do that, you know. But we feel like at the end, all she wanted to do was get back in the ring and find her sister, so on and so forth. For that ending, she's kind of at peace. And I'm trying to speak cryptically. Does it matter if I give it away or not give it away?
It's up to you. No, it's up to you guys. I mean, I don't.
Yeah. No, that was good. We tiptoed around it.
But it's one of those things. And listen, we you know, being completely honest, there were versions of the script that had different endings. But the one that's there was the one that was always initially discussed. And then for other reasons, sometimes people might want something more happy and something more uplifting, and you make concessions and so on and stuff. But it's funny, what it ended up being was what we always says it's gotta be, you know. So and I feel like it's as filmmakers and storytellers, it's kind of exciting because people either love the ending, like absolutely love it and get it, or they're just so punched in the gut, you know, they're just kind of upset. Which is, I mean, listen, I mean, I don't, you know, each individual audience member's experience of a film is their own thing. So you don't know how people are going to react, you know, but I think as a piece of art that we were trying to make, I think that emoting something is what our goal was, you know?
Well, I mean, in many ways, this almost parallels the art of a good fight as well, because, I mean, just the journey of Kali's character, it almost feels like, especially as we get towards the end, we feel like you're somebody who's sort of at the tail end of a fight who shouldn't necessarily be there, but doesn't necessarily have somebody in her corner to throw in the towel and to get her to stop fighting. You're just going to keep going. I mean, it's the fighter mentality. And I mean, for you guys, how do you sort of parallel the art of a good fight versus the art of telling a story? Because in many ways, you're telling a story during a fight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, well, again, this is just having spent more time, I you know, I've become obsessed with boxing, watching boxing and going to her fights. Like it's exactly what you said. It's storytelling, and the more you know about it, you know, it is an art. It's a beautiful, beautiful art, and there's so much nuance and detail. And I think the parallels of there's so many parallels. To be a filmmaker, you know, it's not an easy route. And you're going to get in the ring and get your ass kicked numerous times over and over and over again, right? When you box, you know, you got to be in the moment, you got to be present, very similar to acting, right? You know what I mean? So there's just, there's a lot of parallels. And then with her, for me as the director, the fact that she's a professional world champion athlete, she's disciplined, you know? So she is going to listen to me, and she's going to, and for me, it was just a great process working with her and directing with her.
Yeah, I mean, I found a lot of, you just hit kind of everything, a lot of parallels as far as like, you know, I have a lot of eyes on me, and I have people that I need to trust in my corner. I trust them with my life. When I go in there, I expect them to see what I don't see. And boxing is the game of milliseconds and millimeters. You make that one wrong move and it could be over. You make a wrong choice as an actor, you can probably ruin a whole scene. So understanding that and being very disciplined and wanting to be being an obsessive Virgo and wanting to really get things exactly right. I'm either, I don't put one foot in, one foot out. I'm all in. If I'm all in, I'm all in. And it was that mentality I have with my boxing to put it into the acting and putting in, again, the trust for him to see behind the camera what I don't see, just like with my trainers. And I expect you to nitpick every little thing because we want a perfect fight. We want to tell that perfect story. But as he said, you have to be very present, and we can go over lines to a blue in the face, but I won't know until I'm on the set in front of that actor bouncing off each other. And I can watch a person fight on film. We could talk about it, a game plan, but sometimes game plan changes because what you thought will happen is totally different. So you got to be able to have a deep toolbox and be able to act and like react and not or respond more or less than react, kind of have that play with that. So it's very, very parallel.
No, and I mean this is very much a responsive film, and I mean it feels almost like it's not traditional, obviously, but it feels like a fight film. And I mean, I'm kind of curious, Kali, are there films out there that are fight films that get it right? that sort of get sort of the spirit of what it means to be a professional fighter, or do they get a little too shined over, glossed over?
I think we were just talking about this. One that I gotta say, obviously, Rocky is one of those just classic movies that the fighting sucked. The fighting scene
Right.
sucked, but
Yeah.
it works. But it worked. It has a interesting backstory. If you're a fighter, you're not so right in the head. So you gotta have some kind of backstory. And everybody's story different, but we all fight for something. It might be for somebody's kids. I fight for what I fight for. And the newer movies, Creed, the actual inside boxing and what it means and what goes on behind the scenes and what it takes leading up to a fight that nobody really sees, because we all see the finished product of a movie, we all see the
Right.
fight. There's so many moving parts, so much that goes into a fight. My fights last 20 minutes, but I spend 2.5, 3 months training for this. And the movie is 80 minutes, but we spent almost 5 years talking about this. So even though the fight, it might be crappy, the story behind it and the person, the actual fighter, or the character in the movie is what I would pay attention to those two movies.
Well, you know what? Thanks for giving us a great story, and thanks for giving us a great fight that's on the screen, in one way or another, because it's one of those films that you get roped into and you get sucked into the journey. And I mean, you're exhausted by the end of it, but it's one of those rides you don't forget either. And it's a hell of a film. I just want to say congratulations to you both, and thank you for the time today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having
watching
us.
too.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.